Shravanam Mananam Nidhidhyasanam. Listen, reflect and absorb. Dear listeners, Sai Ram and welcome to our radio series in which a divine discourse by Bhagawan is played in small parts, and following each part a short discussion is undertaken to reflect on the message. In today's episode, which was first broadcast live on 21st January 2016, Professor Sudhir Bhaskar, Director of Radio Sai, participated as a guest. The discourses undertaken for study in this program are from the series of discourses delivered as part of the summer course in Indian Culture and Spirituality, 1991. Have a listen, please.
Offering a most humble pranams at Bhagawan's lotus feet. Dear listeners, we welcome you to this week's episode of Shravanam Mananam Nidhidhyasanam, a series that we re-began last week with the 1991 summer course Discourses. This is Prem from Team Radio Sai, and with me is Sai Prakash. And like last week, we have with us Professor Sudhir Bhaskar. On behalf of all of us, we invite you to join us in this week's program. Sairam sir and Sairam Sai Prakash.
Sairam Prem.
Sairam Prem and Sairam CG.
Sairam sir. Sairam.
And we began with that discourse last week, where we saw how beautifully Swami starts by laying out what he's trying to convey through this entire series, not just this discourse or not just the beginning of the discourse. In fact, the entire summer course series, where Swami, where beautifully the title of the discourse itself is The End of Education is Character, where the starting of a new summer course, the first discourse, and it's called The End of Education is Character. And we, of course, had, as always, a beautiful padyam in the beginning, where Swami was speaking about how you might achieve many things. You might achieve scholarship, you might be very courageous, you might be very powerful, but without selflessness in the heart and steadiness of the mind, there is nothing that you have achieved through the process of education.
That's right. He has always brought this out, to an ordinary, or I would say a person in the world who is not exposed or who's not come across these teachings. They would just say, what is wrong with my life? They would just say, what is wrong with my life? I am happy. I've studied well. I've got a job. I've got a family. I've got a lot of love from my family, and I'm leading a very successful life. But then he says, the only problem with all that is its temporary nature. And he says, you may be a great scholar. You may be able to give the names of all the species of living beings. You may study the 8 limbs of scholarship, that is the Patanjali Yoga. You may master the Patanjali Yoga, 8-fold path. But he says, if you cannot control your body and senses and steady the mind, what's the use of all that?
Not deviating from what you're saying, I thought I'll put in the right perspective. Swami always forewarns us, tells us in advance what is likely to come. As in the first padyam itself, about the series which he has talked about.
Correct.
Please look at the timing. It was in May 1991. Mm-hmm. And that was around that time we opened up our economy.
Right. The economic reforms.
Correct.
And you just see how much of things have got derailed after the economy got opened up. In the pretext of development, progress and whatever you may talk about, the one thing which got totally derailed is the value you give to what you know or what you have. Which I'm directly referring to is about the salaries.
Okay.
Almost it became double and triple for the same job which you were doing before 91.
In fact, it's become much more easier to do the same job given the computerization.
And with that, what happened is when you got so much of money in your hand, what do? Few days you will eat more, you'll buy few things. But after that, you're going to squander away doing things which are not right. And that's what you find in the place now. Just see the way malls have got exploded. And I don't know, sometimes when I go on vacation, my son takes me to one of the malls. Dad, let's go and see what is there. I go there because when I teach marketing also, I want to see what's actually happening, what is the behavior of customers. I just see what are things are there. I mean, does it really allow us to have that type of a thing? That's what I'm saying. When you say moral values are getting corrupted, these are small ways it starts. And after that, you look at what is happening in the taxis, with BPOs. Look at all those things, which are, I'm not saying they're not needed, but the thing is, the way it is turning out to be is not desirable.
So basically what we are saying, and what Swami has also brought out, is if you are catering to the needs of the body, the senses and the mind beyond what they actually require. So the body, senses and the mind, if you look at it in a way, our ancients led a life. They didn't have any mall, they didn't have any flight, they didn't have transportation, they didn't have computers, they didn't have internet, but they led a life nevertheless, possibly much more happier lives than what we are leading now.
Yeah, much better. They already accomplished lots of things better than what we have been able to do. What I'm saying is, and the way Swami started talking about character and education, Swami was trying to tell not only the students and teachers, even the educators, saying that, look, keep this in mind. The population which is going to come out, the youngsters who are going to come out into the market, into the world, outside after going through your degrees, just instill them so that when they don't go wild outside.
Correct.
Since we aren't saying Puttaparthi, we are isolated, we don't see much of them. Anytime you go to just stand for 10 minutes in any of this, like in Abits in Hyderabad, or Mount Road in Chennai, or Marine Drive in Bombay, or Connaught Place in Delhi, you know what happens. What I'm saying is that what the society wants? And that's why Swami was forewarning them, please understand. Then all the 14 discourses, if you look at, step by step, Swami was providing all the inputs which are needed to prevent such a thing to happen.
Right. Of course, here Swami is talking about what we try to achieve through education. Like, Swami says going to the moon, or trying to know probably the nomenclature of all the species, the taxonomy or whatever it is. Yeah. But I think all through, even in our epics, even in our Puranas, there's this reference to, trying to acquire knowledge just for the sake of probably showing off, or to have that feeling of I am more superior to those who have not acquired this knowledge. But there is always that guru who tries to put it in perspective, that the idea is to not necessarily become superhuman, but at least start by being completely human, or in that level where you're at least living the perfect human life. I think that's a theme which is going to come later in the discourse. In fact, in that very beautiful book, Swami Rama has that episode where he's frustrated with his guru. He's saying that I'm not learning anything from you. I'm not acquiring any siddhis being under your tutelage. So the guru says, all right, you can go and look for another guru. So he goes and apparently comes back after many years, having learned the art of making fire without anything, and he comes and says that, Master, I've learned this. So he's very childishly, the master says, what have you learned? Show it to me. And he creates fire and says, you've spent so many years of your life to acquire something which you could have got with 2 rupees.
With a matchbox.
We could have bought a matchbox. That's all you've acquired. And then it strikes him that, what his master is trying to teach us, something much more profound. And probably in all of us, in the desire to acquire something which is more flamboyant, we are missing out something very basic. And Swami is drawing attention to that.
Just another perspective to the whole poem and the first paragraph, what we did last week, is what our ancients have always laid in front of us is the 4 goals of life: dharma, artha, kama, moksha. And Swami has often stressed on that. He said artha has to be earned in a dharmic way, and kama has to be towards moksha. So he says the artha, the wealth, has to be wedded with dharma, and the desire, what we have, should lead towards moksha. And if you lead such a balanced life, I think everything falls into place.
Actually, one more example he gives for the same in another discourse when we were there for MBA students was, Swami said, like a river. The 2 banks of the river is dharma and moksha.
Oh, yes.
And he says, no, if you don't forget about this, what will happen to the water? It will go wild. That means the artha and kama are going to freak out.
Yeah, this is like the 2 banks.
Banks of the river.
Correct.
So they regulate.
Correct.
So that's what Swami was also trying to tell us, that regulate your money which you get and the desires which you are having, keeping these 2 in mind.
Right. And if you look at it, Swami even makes a statement of attachment to family and power is unrestrained. And in many ways, if you see, there is a very fine balance between attachment to family and being totally indifferent to family life, where you see that happening a little in the Western societies or influenced by that Western kind of thing. At the same time, you have this too much attachment to the family where, probably the individual goes to any extent to provide for the family, which is again a serious problem.
Correct.
Swami is mentioning about that balance. And of course, the first one is mostly about Swami saying that how in small ways science and technology is probably trying to bring welfare to humanity, but when absolutely unwedded from values and from virtues and cultivation of those human values, it doesn't seem to be doing as much good as it was intended to in the first place.
In fact, I think we stopped with a question, and I had wished you had not stopped in that place last week. But nevertheless, the question was, the last line here says, science has become all important and morality has declined. What is the cause of such retrograde progress in these two aspects? I think that was the question.
Swami is saying that science is progressing. There's no doubt about that. At the same time, society and values are falling.
Declining.
So what is the cause for this dual nature of society? So we'll go to that next clip. This again, for listeners who've joined us only this week, it's the 1991 Samako series, and we're playing the first discourse, that's 20th of May, 1991.
ఈనాడు మానవునికి కావలసినటువంటి యొక్క ప్రధానం ఏమిటి?
What is it that man should aspire to become today?
పవిత్ర హృదయులైనటువంటి యొక్క మా బాల బాలికలు కావాలి.
The need is to develop sacred hearts, both boys and girls.
నిస్వార్థ హృదయులు కావాలి.
They should become selfless people.
దేశములకు తమ యొక్క జీవితాన్ని త్యాగం చేసేటువంటి వీరులు కావాలి.
They must become heroic in offering themselves as an offering for the protection of the
కానీ
country.
దురదృష్టవశాత్తు ఈనాటి మానవుడు ధనకనక వస్తువాహనాదుల చేత సుఖశాంతులు అనుభవిస్తామని భావిస్తున్నాడు, భ్రమిస్తున్నాడు.
But unfortunately, today's man is deluding himself and feeling firmly that what he should develop is money, wealth, prosperity.
నిజముగా ధనకనక వస్తువాహనాల యందు సుఖశాంతులు ఏమాత్రము లేవు.
Truly speaking, one cannot find happiness or peace in money, wealth,
ఒకవేళ సుఖమును
material
అందించిన
prosperity.
తాత్కాలికమైనటువంటి సుఖమును అందించవచ్చునేమో కానీ నిజమైనటువంటి సుఖము బయట పరిస్థితులు ఎందుకు కానీ బయట వస్తువులు ఎందుకు కానీ మనకు కానరాదు.
Whatever little happiness one may acquire, it may be only very temporary, but you can never find permanent peace in the external world.
ఛత్రపతి శివాజీకి ధనకనక వస్తువాహనాలు తక్కువేమీ లేదు.
Emperor Chhatrapati did not lack in wealth or prosperity.
కానీ అతను సమస్త రామదాసును ఆశ్రయించడంలో ఉండినటువంటి అంతరార్థం ఏమిటి?
What is the inner significance of Shivaji resorting to the great Guru Samartha Ramdas for guidance?
జనకునకు ధనకనక వస్తువాహనాదుల్లో ఏ తక్కువ లేదు.
King Janaka did not lack any material prosperity whatsoever.
కానీ అతను యాజ్ఞవల్కుని ఆశ్రయించడంలో ఉండినటువంటి అంతరార్థం ఏమిటి?
But what is the reason in his approaching Yajnavalka for guidance?
ఇదే విధముగానే ప్రాచీన కాలము నుండి భారతదేశమునందు రారాజులంతా కూడాను యతిరాజులను ఆశ్రయించి వారి ద్వారా శాంతి భద్రతలను అందుకోగలుగుతూ వచ్చారు.
This is the ancient tradition of India. Kings and emperors resorted to the great sannyasins and gurus who have renounced their world and sought their guidance and help.
కేవలము మానవులకు ప్రధానమైనటువంటి యొక్క శాంతి ఆత్మజ్ఞానమునందు మాత్రమే లభ్యమవును కానీ అన్య మార్గములందు ఏమాత్రము కూడాను లభ్యము కాదు.
Man can find permanent and lasting peace only in the knowledge of self and spirituality.
ఈనాటి మానవుని యొక్క మనసు నైతిక ధార్మికమునందు ఇంత ఘోరముగా క్షీణించిపోవడానికి కారణం ఏమిటో విద్యార్థులు గుర్తించడం అత్యవసరం.
Students should essentially recognize the reason as to why there has been such a fall in man's love for spirituality, morality and integrity.
శీలరహితమైన విద్య వల్లను
Education without character,
మానవత్వం లేనటువంటి భౌతిక వైజ్ఞానం వల్లను,
science without humanity,
నిజాయితీ లేనటువంటి వ్యాపారం వల్లను,
business without morality,
నిజము లేనటువంటి యొక్క రాజకీయ తంత్రముల వల్లను,
the political science not based upon moral principles,
ప్రపంచము అనేక విధమైనటువంటి యొక్క కష్టములకు గురి అవుతూ వచ్చింది.
the world has come to face innumerable problems.
ఈనాటి మానవత్వములో తరిగిపోయినటువంటి యొక్క దివ్యత్వాన్ని విద్యార్థులు పునరుద్ధరింప చేయాలి.
The students will have to restore the spirituality which has come to the nodule in man's life.
విద్యార్థులు యందు జాతీయతా భావం అభివృద్ధి గావించాలి.
Students should develop the national spirit.
ఈనాటి విద్యను కేవలము తెలివితేటలు మాత్రమే పెంచుతున్నది కానీ గుణముని ఏమాత్రం కూడాను అభివృద్ధి గావించటం లేదు.
Today's education is helping only to grow intelligence and cleverness, but not virtues and character.
ఈనాటి విద్యార్థుల యొక్క తలను అనగా మస్తకమును పుస్తకముల వలె మార్చుకోగలుగుతున్నారే కానీ విద్యార్థుల యొక్క నిత్య జీవితమునందు మానవతా విలువను ఏమాత్రం కూడా పెంచుకున్నట్టుకు ప్రయత్నించడం లేదు.
Today's student is transforming his head into a book, but in his daily life he is not observing any human values whatsoever.
పుస్తకమును మస్తకంగా మార్చుకోవటం చేత, మస్తకమును పుస్తకంగా మార్చుకోవటం చేత లభించేటువంటి ఫలితం ఏమాత్రం కూడా లేదు.
What one can achieve by changing his head into a book and a book into a head is nothing, nil.
నిత్య జీవితము లోపల సత్య మార్గాన్ని గుర్తించి తగినటువంటి ఆచరణలో పెట్టాలి.
One has to practice truth and true life in his day-to-day living.
ఈ విధమైనటువంటి యొక్క మానవత్వాన్ని మనం ఏ విధంగా అభివృద్ధి గావించుకోవాలి?
How can one develop this kind of human life?
పాప భీతి లేని పామరత్వము పట్టి, దైవ ప్రీతి లేని దాని బట్టి, మానవత్వమడగే మానవులందున విశ్వశాంతికిదియే విప్లవంబు. మానవత్వమనగే మానవులందున విశ్వశాంతికిదియే విప్లవంబు.
Man has lost fear of sin and love of God, and thus man has destroyed the human nature and human qualities in him. This is becoming responsible for the world's revolution.
కనుక ఈనాటి మానవునకు పాప భీతి, దైవ ప్రీతి, సంఘ నీతి ఈ మూడే ముచ్చటగా హృదయానికి నింపుకోవడానికి ప్రయత్నించాలి.
Today's man has to fill himself with fear of sin, love for God, and morality in society.
ఇవి ప్రతి మానవునికి కూడాను ప్రాంతీయ అభిమానమే కాక దేశీయ అభిమానం నందు కూడాను మానవ జీవితమునకు కూడాను దేశమునకే ఒక ఆదర్శవంతమైనటువంటి ఒక దీనిని అందిస్తున్నాయి.
Man should not merely develop love for his own region. He must develop patriotism and love for the nation. Thus he can bring about prosperity.
నేటి విద్యలు తెలివితేటలని పెంచే, కొంచెమైన గుణము పెంచబోదు. కోటి తెలివిలుండి గుణము లేకున్నచో ఫలమదేమి వాణి విలువదేమి.
Today's education concentrate only in developing cleverness and intelligence, but they never care to develop virtues and character in man. What is the use of having crores of worth, any amount of intelligence without virtue? What is it that he is going to achieve? What is it that he is going to get out of it?
కనుక ఈనాటి మానవునకు ప్రధానమైనటువంటిది మానవతా విలువ.
Therefore, today's students should develop human qualities and human values.
అది ది ప్రాపర్ స్టడీ ఆఫ్ మెన్కైండ్ ఇస్ మ్యాన్. థాట్స్, వర్డ్స్, యాక్షన్. ఈ మూడింటి యొక్క ఏకత్వం అత్యవసరం.
The unity of thought, word and deed must be the goal of every man.
ఈనాటి మానవుని యందు మూడు కూడాను భిన్నముగా అనుభవిస్తున్నారు.
Man is allowing these three to go in three different directions.
ఆకార మానవుని వల్ల లోకానికి ఏమాత్రం కూడాను ప్రయోజనం లేదు.
World cannot get any benefit from persons who are human beings only in form.
ఆచార మానవుడు ఈనాడు అత్యవసరం.
Today's need is man should become man in practice.
ఈనాటి వైజ్ఞానికులు కానీ రాజకీయవేత్తలు కానీ అనేక విధములుగా కూడా పిల్లలకు ప్రబోధిస్తూ ఉన్నారు.
Whether it is scientists or the politicians and leaders, they are trying to teach a number of things to students.
కానీ బోధనలు కాదు ప్రధానం.
But preaching is not what is
ఈనాడు
important.
కావలసినది ఎవరు?
What is it that is required today?
గోడలపైన రాసే వ్రాతలు, వేదికలపైన కూసే కూతలు, పేపర్కి ఇచ్చేటువంటి రాతలు ఇవి కాదు జగత్తునకు కావలసినటువంటిది. నీతి నియమాలతో కూడినటువంటి నేతలు కావాలి.
Writing on the walls some slogans, giving paper statements, making big speeches on the platform are not the requirements and the need of the day. What is required is morality and integrity integrated and practiced in daily life.
ఇది కేవలము ఆచరణ రూపమైనటువంటి ప్రబోధన సల్పాలి.
One has to teach based upon one's own practice.
ఆచరణ రూపమైన ప్రచార ప్రబోధములే ఈనాడు అత్యవసరము.
Today's need is practicing and preaching. They should be taken together.
ఈనాటి మానవ జీవితము అమిత వ్యయంతో కూడి ఉంటున్నది.
Today's life is based upon ostentation and excessive expenditure.
ఈనాడు సాంకేతిక విజ్ఞాన శాస్త్రం విరివిగా పెరిగిపోయినది.
Today's science and technology have grown enormously.
దీనివల్ల ఈనాటి సమస్యలు ఏమాత్రం కూడా మనకు తీరవు.
But they can never solve the problems of the day.
మానవుని యొక్క సమస్యలు తీరవలనన్నా మానవుని ద్వారానే తీరవాలి.
If you want to solve the problems of man through man
మానవుని
alone,
యొక్క ప్రవర్తన ద్వారానే ఈ సమస్యలు తీరిపోవాలి.
through changing his own conduct and behavior,
మానవుడు మానవుడిగా జీవించడానికి
man has to live as man.
కానీ ఈనాటి మానవుడు దానవుని వలె పశువులే జీవించడానికి ప్రయత్నిస్తున్నాడు.
But today's man is living the life of a demon or an animal.
కాదు కాదు, మానవత్వం మానవత్వంగా మనం అభివృద్ధి గావించుకోవాలి.
But one has to develop the human nature and human qualities in human beings.
So that was the clip which the second clip from that discourse. Of course, the beauty of Swami's padyams, so powerful yet so very succinct in their meaning, so really beautiful, and it's so wonderful to listen to Swami's voice with that.
That's exactly the point. I mean, very frankly, after a long time, we are listening to Swami's voice again.
Really?
Yeah, but for those who have the habit of listening to his discourse every day, I'm sure there's so much in every sentence of Swami. But right now, in this segment of the discourse, I feel I'm being shot at because the sentences are so powerful. And Swami is just, bringing out the current deplorable situation. A situation where, there is decline in morals, and is bringing out such details. And he's also giving solutions. I think we'll go step by step.
Right. In many ways, we look at it. Here in front of you is a community of students, 1,000 people, students are standing. No mincing words.
Exactly.
Education is a sitting, no mincing words. Swami saying what is what. Many times you look at it, a spiritual discourse, you tend to think that, the master will be laid back and eyes half closed and a soft voice.
Absolutely not. Swami is thundering out there.
Swami is really thundering, and no uncertain terms Swami is saying that what is wrong with the society today.
In fact, I think Swami has done it a couple of other times as well. I remember some of the old devotees mentioning that in 72 or 73, when he went to Delhi and addressed an assembly of bureaucrats, he literally opened fire. And that's why I remember this point from the previous episode of Shravanam Mananam, where one of our professors was telling the 3 aspects of pure love. He says selfless, changeless and fearless.
Fearless.
I mean, absolutely fearless. Swami is just presenting the current situation. There is no mincing of words. This is what it is. This is what science. Yes, there is growth in science and technology. And possibly that's one of the reasons for the turmoil we are having today.
Right.
No, in this context, in 1999, when Swami went to Bombay,
Right.
in the outskirts, Swami gave a talk.
Exactly. That's another occasion.
Where, he was talking about all these business people, moneyed people and all. And he was give the example that, you are staying in a multi-story skyscraper. Did you any time just look out of your window and see what is there around you?
Exactly.
And then Swami said, if that is the type of thing, does not your heart melt? Basically, what Swami is telling is, he uses every opportunity to remind us what our duties and responsibilities are, not our authorities and rights.
Right.
So once we do our duties and responsibilities, automatically the rights will come. But nowadays we do the reverse. We don't want to do any take up responsibility, do any duty, but no, we want all rights and privileges.
And it's so beautiful, the example which Swami is giving, so very powerful, the example of Chhatrapati Shivaji and Janaka, trying to tell this body of students that what was lacking in these two personalities. Emperors and, such influence and power they had in their command. And if they were to go and surrender to a master, a man who has probably given up everything, Samarth Ramdas or Yajnavalkya in the other case, if somebody who has achieved everything in life wants to readily go and surrender at the feet of somebody who has nothing in his possession, then what is it which is lacking even after you've achieved everything? I mean, is that in your sight when you are pursuing education?
Correct. And that also tells us, when you're trying to surrender, what is it Swami expects, or what is he qualify your surrendering as?
Right.
Many times when we surrender, so many things we tell. But do we understand from the term what surrender is? Of course, subsequently Swami explained what surrender means. So I thought, that we should always keep in mind.
In fact, there was an episode which I have narrated possibly 3 times in the previous Shravanam Mananam. But it's so powerful when you talk about surrender. There was this old devotee of Swami who asked him, Swami, is there a way I can bind you in my heart? I want to bind you. This is, in fact, the Vedic scholar who actually wrote Sai Gayatri. And he asked Bhagawan, Swami, I want to bind you in my heart. Please tell me in what way can I bind you? What tapas, what yajnam, what homam I should do? What penance should I do? Swami said, nothing can bind me. Then Swami, please Swami, I want to bind you. Then Swami said, you want to bind me? Yes, Swami. Take, I'm right here. Bind me. I'm here standing in front of you. Why don't you bind me? Then he said, no, not this kind of binding, because no rope can tie you up here. I want to bind you in my heart. So what is the way to bind you in my heart? Then Swami said, there is nothing that you do can ever bind me in your heart except one way. So he asked Swami, what is it? Swami said, Sharanagati. Surrender. He says the moment you surrender and you are carefree, you do what you want, you go. God has to go, oh, this my so-and-so is going. I better take care before he goes and eats. The child is not bothered because the mother is right behind. So, you surrender. And that's the beauty of surrender. And here Swami brings in this beautiful aspect that you surrender to the master because you know that the master has the only thing of value which you have not got in any ways, in the world. By any means.
It's almost like a merger of a huge company with a startup. Yeah. Overnight from being an employee of a small company, you become the employee of such a big this one. And also reminds me of that beautiful Chinnakatha which Swami would often say, where a king goes on his expedition and he sees this sadhu sitting without anything, bare-bodied, he's sitting there. So the king takes pity and goes and gives him a bag of gold coins. So the sadhu just accepts, he doesn't refuse anything, he accepts and then asks the king, what are you doing here? So he says, I've come on an expedition to conquer this land. I'm a king from the neighboring kingdom. And so he says, how big is your kingdom? So he describes that it's from this part to that part.
Okay.
And so will you stop with conquering this? And he said, no, I want to conquer more. After this, I'll go to the next kingdom. So then the sadhu gives back that bag of gold coins and he says, you seem to be a bigger beggar than me. I have no needs and I don't have any desire to go and nothing to achieve, but you don't seem to be satisfied at all. So probably you need this more than me.
So here Swami really brings out, he says, that peace for which you are looking for, it cannot be got by any other means except knowledge of the self. And that is a statement which really needs a lot of pondering, because yes, people have come, they have lived their lives, they have gone, they have died, and without knowing the 4 simple alphabets called A, T, M, A, Atma. How many people have come and gone? I mean, knowledge of the self. What is self? I mean, how many people have gone? So what does it connote? It connotes that yes, you have a life which you have gone through, and you come back unfulfilled again. So the circle goes on unless you really step up to it. And he says this is the only path. Knowledge of the self is the only path. Then of course Swami goes further and he amplifies the current situation where education without character, science without human values, commerce without ethics, politics without truth are responsible for erosion of virtue. And then he says students should cultivate patriotism. That is one aspect. But what the students are actually trying to do right now is they are trying to convert their head, the mastakam, into a pustakam. That is, they're trying to get worldly wise. That's, they're trying to enhance their intelligence and cleverness, which is not sufficient. That's what Swami is
basically talking about. No, don't cram your head with facts and figures.
Exactly.
Because that's what you get. Any of the things which you look at.
Right.
Instead of that, you go back and get the essence of each one of them. That is going to actually bail you out.
Interestingly, when this book printing started, I think Gutenberg started that thing. One of the fears of intellectuals of that time was this: you're putting knowledge in hard print, and generations to come will take it as this is what is knowledge.
Not reach it.
Right. They will not take it and process it inside and come out with their own wisdom. They will think that this is what the subject is. If they
will believe what is printed.
Precisely. I think we mentioned this before. Some of the erstwhile great singers of Hindustani music and ghazal singers, they would never lend their voice for recording.
Yes.
Especially because they would have, they would take one raga and explore it for 3 hours. So they will say that don't record my voice, because generations to come will think that this raga can be rendered only this way. Because the same raga on a different day, I will render it completely differently.
Exactly.
So when Swami says that the head is becoming the book, Swami is telling, I think, that the inability to really go into the essence of knowledge just by taking the facts and reproducing it, I think we all are, at least I can talk for myself.
I think
typical example of what has happened.
No, when you talk of Gutenberg, I think they are now digitizing books on the net, right? There's an entire movement to actually digitize. So we have moved on from printed matter to matter on the internet.
Absolutely.
So
and the next step is audiobooks.
Audiobooks.
So you don't want to put even an effort of reading it.
Right. And in fact, in another way, if you look at it, one thing which is really happening with society is we all want to think, convey and get answers in binaries. Right or wrong, yes or no.
Yeah, exactly.
Something is happening, is this correct or not correct? But we don't realize that everything is so much in detail and it cannot be told in black and white. And if you just look at the way journalism happens today, it's like that. Either you take this side or that side. There is no middle path. There is no understanding a complex situation.
That's what they say. You are either with me or you are away from me. That's all. There's no way of
my way or the highway.
No, here when he says mastakam into pustakam, we should go back to the discourse on buddhi which Swami gave in the previous series. And there very beautifully Swami differentiates between medha shakti and buddhi. He says medas, or intelligence and cleverness, is restricted to bookish knowledge, is restricted to day-to-day knowledge. But buddhi, which gets inspired by the Atma, it's driving you towards the Atman. So this is the differentiation that Swami actually brought out then. That don't fill your heads with facts and figures, which is more like just intelligence.
Right.
Like
normally in management, what we say is no, we always have data. And then when you process it, it becomes intelligence. And after some time, we say it becomes knowledge. Then we call it knowledge. But everybody stops at that point. But what you should go is to the next step, converting into wisdom. And that wisdom will come only when you try to practice it.
Right.
And that's what actually Swami is talking about. That Mastakam Pustakam is now. You're only putting in your head without understanding the essence of it and enjoying that and then distilling it and then converting it into your behavior. Without that, at this condition, like the binary system as you mentioned, if this happens, let's do this. If this happens, let's do this.
Right.
Unfortunately, as Macaulay himself says about this education system, he says that I want to convert the intelligent people in India into morons.
Correct.
That's what the final thing has been evolving. And actually one of my vice chancellors was asking, if you want to get on to what Swami way of understanding and then make a student, he said, what should we do? I said, first of all, junk the university examination system. Because university examination system starts with, what you call, distrust. So, if that is the case, then, to just make yourself prove that you're trustworthy, you ask questions which you can memorize.
It's not applied.
And second thing is not able to get any essence out of the particular one. So, it becomes only factual. So, like data, you're not progress beyond data at all.
I think precisely 345 days after I completed my master's, I forgot everything I studied. Really, how does it, I have really changed my field, and I'm sure that's happening to millions. But
it's needed because that allows you to develop the way of analysis, analytics and understanding. See, the focus should be on that. If you're able to do, then what happens is, we tell them in the class that, you do a lot of case studies. You mean to say in your life you're going to see only these cases? These situations are not the ones which you're going to face in your life. So don't ask me for, if this is the one, what do I solve like? But having done that analysis and say, this is how you should look at arrive at solutions, if I know the methodology and the process in which I have to go through, the new situation I'm going to find in my life is going to be now possible for me to handle it.
Right.
That's the basic
The beauty is when Swami says, it has to be practiced, and when Swami is telling that there should be unity of thought, word, and deed. If you look at the way Swami, the importance that Swami gave to years of experience when it came to any field, in the ashram, the way Swami, he built it into the culture of this place, where I think as students we knew that disrespecting an elder was a cardinal sin for Swami, because he wanted us to imbibe that respect for experience which comes with being in situations, not about just learning. Beautiful thing which Swami would often tell devotees who are saying that you're not retiring, I'm retiring you. That importance that Swami gave to the years of being in the field and applying knowledge, I think that Swami put into us by encouraging this respect for elders, respect for seniors. And I think that when Swami says that, there should be unity of thought, word and deed, Swami really lived it through in all stages and, stood as an example.
Once it happened in the veranda.
Okay.
One parent and a father was telling Swami, my son doesn't listen to me. He repeated 2-3 times. Swami was very patient and after some time said, at his age, what did you do? So what you do, you get back. So if I start respecting when I'm young, youngsters are going to show me respect when I become old. What you give, you get back. It's pure, what you can call the karma theory to start with.
There's another aspect when we are saying putting it to practice. In this very hall, in the studio, Swami said, knowledge, skill, balance and success. So he says you have to have knowledge and that has to be skilled with balance. Balance comes when you have a selfless outlook. It's not selfish outlook. And then you get success.
Swami said leads to insight.
Insight.
Right? That's what
Insight.
Swami said. Then it goes to insight. Because at the end of it, I think all our problems are solved only by gut feeling, not by going back to theory or,
not using calculator.
Absolutely. A couple of weeks back, we were going through another discourse for the afternoon satsang program where Swami was defining Satya, truth. And Swami said, truth is nothing. I'll give you a simple definition of what truth is. The ability to speak and be in resonance with your conscience. Swami said that's all it is. It's not about speaking facts. It's not about speaking what is truth as we understand it. Swami said if you're able to express what your conscience says, that's all it is. That's all truth is.
Actually, that's it. The Swami gives 3 stages. Ritam, Nizam, Satyam.
Satyam.
We all are stopped at Nizam. A Ritam is facts.
Okay.
Nizam means factual, that this is what it is,
Right.
not fact. This is what, somebody hit him, that's all. But Nizam is, why did he hit him? What was the reason? So that is what Swami talks about, going to the Satyam stage. So that means you should know precedence, sustenance and all those things, what actually happened. Then you can make a judgment saying that whether it did really a crime or not.
And again, this beautiful quote of the proper study of mankind is man. So he says, unless you look within, there's no point in just blaming the situation, I would say, rather. And again, this unity of thought, word and deed. I think Swami brought about this even in the previous series when we did the same example. Swami said Satyam and Ritam. So if you have unity of all three, then it connotes perfect understanding of mankind.
Right. And even this statement, which is recurring so many times in the previous series, where Swami says, we don't want akara manodu, we want achara manodu.
Exactly.
It's a beautiful thing, because the other day I was listening to a talk where the person was defining what is animal nature, or rather the nature of any organism. He said there are two qualities. One is self-preservation and self-propagation. And if you look at it, if you don't get out of these two, it's not that you have to give up these two, but if you confine your thinking only to these two, then you're never growing out of that animal nature to what Swami says is human. That's why Swami is saying that, don't remain with taking care of your family, with using it for comforts, for using it for earning. There is something more than that. Of course, Swami has said it many times, and I'm sure Swami is going to say it again in the course of this discourse too.
I think, about this unity of thought, word and deed. I'll give a small example.
Right.
Which makes it easy for us to understand, because many times we don't have the full grip of what this particular unity of thought, word and deed means. This happened in the veranda. What we call farm boys were there, father, brother and two brothers. Both of them studied MBA, one after the other. They were waiting for Swami to give what we call the waiting boys. But they were in form. So every alternate week, Swami used to go call them for interview. Whenever the parents come, even before they say anything, Swami will say, your parents have come, call them. A lot of interviews also they have had. And every time, as if it's by, habit, when Swami asked him some point, then Swami, both the children said, Swami, you are a mother and father. Swami asked him, what did you say? You are my father and mother. Nizangana, yes, Swami. Okay. Then it happened after a month or so, his parents came for a visit. And they were there for 2 days, morning and evening. None of the time Swami mentioned that they have come, nor did he acknowledge them, nor the children that they have come. So next day they were leaving. So after desperation, that boy, one of them got up and said, Swami, my parents have come. Swami avoided, went to interview, came out. Again, so he said, Swami, my parents have come. Again, avoided. Third time when he came near, said, Swami, parents have come. Emanna, what did you say? Swami, my parents have come. But last time you said something else. And then said and just walked back. Saying that, then it struck to him that, look, I already said that, Swami, you are my father, mother. If Swami is a father, mother, who are these people who are not come? So what happens, when you are saying something to Swami, we should be prepared in every aspect to implement that particular thing which we are going to say.
Correct.
So that is the one which makes us different. So it can be as subtle as the simple thing like this. And through this only you can go to the higher levels of what you can call surrender.
Right. And I think any time Swami asks you more than once to repeat, it's for you to really think. Because when we used to have the children's hour, we used to have the conversation. The kid says something, you repeat the question 3 times, then the truth will come out. We are all like that in front of Swami, and it's more an opportunity, as Sir said. When you say something to Swami, Swami is giving us an opportunity to stop and look at what you've said, look at what's in your head, and
think about it, and are you really serious about it?
Right. So I think we have another small clip, about 6 minutes.
Sure.
We'll go through that before the close of this program.
విద్యార్థులారా, విద్యలన్నీ కేవలం ఉద్యోగ నిమిత్తమై ఆచరించేటువంటివిగా మీరు భ్రమిస్తున్నారు.
Dear students, you are deluding yourself that education is meant for a job.
ఉద్యోగమునకు విద్యకు ఉండినటువంటి సంబంధ బాంధవ్యాన్ని త్రుంచివేయాలి.
You have to separate education from the jobs totally.
Education should be for life, not for living. జీవితము లోపల అనేక విధములైనటువంటి యొక్క మృగములు, పశుపక్షి మృగాదులంతా కూడాను జీవిస్తూనే ఉంటున్నాయి. జీవితం చాలా ప్రధానం కాదు.
You can see animals, birds and beasts living a life without any education.
ఆకలి దప్పులతో పశుపక్షి మృగాదులు కూడాను జీవిస్తూనే ఉంటున్నాయి.
Whenever they are hungry or thirst, even animals and birds fill their stomach.
జీవించడం కాదు ప్రధానము.
Living such a life is not important.
జీవితం అనేటువంటి రహస్యాన్ని మనం తెలపాలి.
We have to understand the subtle secrets of life.
కానీ ఈనాడు జీవితముకు సంబంధించినటువంటి యొక్క విషయాలను మాత్రమే ప్రబోధిస్తున్నారు విద్యారంగమునందు.
In education institutions, people are teaching only about living.
జీవితం అంటే ఏమిటో దీని విషయాన్ని ఎవ్వరు కూడా ప్రబోధించడం లేదు.
But no one is caring to teach what life really is.
మానవ జీవితం చాలా పవిత్రమైనటువంటిది.
Human's life is
దివ్యమైనటువంటిది,
divine.
జీవించదగినటువంటిది.
It is meant for living.
ఇట్టి మానవత్వాన్ని ఈనాడు మనం విస్మరించి
Today we are giving up such human life.
భౌతికమైన లౌకికమైనటువంటి యొక్క ఈ పంచభౌతిక సుఖముల నిమిత్తమై మనము అనేక విధములుగా ప్రాకులాడుతున్నాము.
We are aspiring to enjoy the worldly and physical comforts.
కనుక మనము భౌతికమైనటువంటి యొక్క అనుకూలము అత్యవసరమే.
Worldly comforts are necessary.
కానీ జీవితమంతా దానికే అర్పితము గావించరాదు.
One should not dedicate his entire life.
ప్రపంచంలోని సమస్త వస్తువులు కూడాను ఒకానొక కాలంలో మార్పు చెందుతున్నవి.
All the things in the world undergo change one day or the other.
ప్రతి మానవుడు కూడాను ఒకానొక కాలంలో క్షీణించిపోతున్నాడు.
Every man sees his end one day or the other.
ప్రతి మానవుడు కూడాను ఒకానొక కాలంలో క్షీణించిపోతున్నాడు.
Every man sees his end one day or the other.
కానీ మానవుడు మరణించినప్పటికీ మానవుని యొక్క ఆశయాలు మాత్రం ఏనాటికి మరణించవు. అవి చిరంజీవిగా ఉంటుంటాయి.
Even after man's death, man's ideals are always immortal.
కనుకని ఈ ఆదర్శ జీవితాన్ని మనం అనుభవింపచేయాలి.
We should live an ideal life.
ఆశయాలను మనం అభివృద్ధి పరచుకోవాలి.
We should develop great ideals.
అవి ఏ అమరత్వమైనటువంటివి,
That is
అవి ఏ అమృతమైనటువంటివి,
that is immortal nectarine.
ఇట్టి ఆశయాలను విద్యార్థులు ఈనాడు జగత్తుకు వ్యాపింపచేయాలి.
Students of today should spread such ideals by their own example.
ప్రాచీన కాలము నుండి మన భారతదేశము అనంతమైనటువంటి యొక్క ఆత్మబోధన జరుపుతూనే వస్తున్నవి.
Right from ancient days, our Bharat has been teaching spirituality of the highest order.
ఆధ్యాత్మిక కనస సంపత్తికి ఆలవాలమైన భారతదేశమునందు
Bharat, which is the birthplace for spirituality,
ఈనాడు అశాంతి, అక్రమము, అనాచారము, అసత్యము, అధర్మము అనేటువంటి పైశాచిక ప్రవర్తులు ప్రళయతాండవం చేస్తున్నాయి.
and in the same Bharat today, lack of peace, strife, agitations and unrighteousness are doing a death dance.
ఇట్టి సమస్యలను పరిహారం గావించుకోవడానికి విద్యార్థులే తగిన సమర్థులు.
Only students are appropriate persons to solve these problems.
ప్రేమ స్వరూపులైన విద్యార్థులారా,
Students, embodiments of divine love.
మీ జీవితమును దేశమునకు అంకితము గావించుకునేటువంటి యొక్క భావములో మీ యొక్క హృదయాన్ని నింపుకోవాలి.
Fill your hearts to dedicate yourselves for the nation.
కేవలము స్వార్థము 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 సరైనటువంటిది కాదు.
Selfishness is not good for you.
ఫిష్ ఈజ్ బెటర్ దాన్ సెల్ఫిష్. మానవుడు కేవలము స్వార్థములోనే మునిగి జగత్ అనేటువంటి దీంట్లో సంచారం చేస్తూ జగత్తులో ఉండినటువంటి యొక్క దుర్గుణములను, దురాచారములను, దుహంకారములను ఏమాత్రం కూడా రూపులే మార్పు చేయలేకపోతున్నాడు.
Man filled with selfishness has not been able to remove from the world any wickedness, evil and any such negative things.
ప్రేమను పెంచుకోవాలి.
Develop love.
విశాలమైనటువంటి మనసును అభివృద్ధి గావించుకోవాలి.
Broaden your mind and
లవ్ లివ్స్ బై గివింగ్ అండ్ ఫర్ గివింగ్, సెల్ఫ్ లివ్స్ బై గెటింగ్ అండ్ ఫర్ గెటింగ్. ఇంతియే కాక మన భారతీయ చరిత్రమునందు అష్టాదశ పురాణములు యందు ఉండినటువంటి యొక్క 2 వాక్యములు, అదే హెల్ప్ ఎవర్ హర్ట్ నెవర్. ఈ రెండింటినీ విద్యార్థులు అత్యవసరంగా పాటించాలి.
the essence of 18 Puranas may be summed up in one sentence: help ever, hurt never. Students should practice this.
ఈ రెండూ లేకపోవడం చేతనే ఈనాటి మానవుడు ప్రతి ఒక్క అడుగు కూడాను అధర్మంలో పడుతుండాలి.
Today's man is falling into unrighteous life every step because he doesn't observe these
ప్రతి
two.
పలుకులో కూడాను సత్యము సడలిపోతుంటుండాలి.
In every statement that he makes, there is no truth because of
ప్రతి
this.
చూపులో కూడాను ప్రేమ క్షీణించిపోతుండాలి.
There is no love in his vision because of this.
ప్రతి ఆశ లోపల కూడాను దూరదృష్టి నశించిపోతుండాలి.
In every look of his, there is no farsightedness.
ప్రతి కోరిక కూడాను స్వార్థ రూపాన్ని ధరిస్తుండాలి.
Every desire is becoming highly selfish.
మానవుని యందు అభ్యుదయ భావాలు అడుగంటిపోతున్నాయి.
Progressive ideas cannot be seen in man at
చైతన్యము
all.
చల్లబడిపోతుండాలి.
Consciousness is at the lowest
కులమత
ebb.
భేదాలంతా మారణ హోమం సలుపుతున్నాయి.
All the wicked things are making a death dawns because of this.
రాగ ద్వేషాదులు అనేటువంటిది స్వేచ్ఛా విహారం సలుపుతున్నాయి.
Attachment and our hatred are also developing on a large scale.
నిజము చెప్పాలనుకుంటే మానవత్వమే పూర్తి నశించిపోయింది.
If one has to tell truth, the human qualities themselves are destroyed.
మనకు ఈనాడు క్వాలిటీ కావాలి కానీ క్వాంటిటీ కాదు.
Today's need is quality, not
ఒక టీ
quantity.
స్పూన్ ఆఫ్ కౌ మిల్క్ యూజ్ఫుల్, వై బ్యారెన్స్ ఆఫ్ డాంకీ మిల్క్?
A teaspoon of cow's
That translation was cut because Swami starts off with the next line, which we'll have to wait till next week. But again, a very, very powerful clip. Swami is just getting stronger and stronger with his reprimand.
That's right. It's like a school teacher standing with a stick and saying,
Right.
this is also what you did. This is also what you did. But here, the beautiful point which Swami says is, what is the difference between being an animal and being a human? And we have that regular, that shloka, ahara nidra bhaya maitunani samanyam etat pashubir naranam. Jnanam. So he says the knowledge, that alone is what separates you from being an animal. And, I can't help but think something very sweet comes to my mind, because the intensity with which Swami would look at people around, students around, and say, Dunna pota. Really, we don't know what Swami meant, but it was very loving. Sometimes I think Dunna pota is actually a he buffalo. And are we just roaming around without being sensitive, or is it Swami reducing our animal nature? But he would often say that, just that came to my mind. I would say, Dunna pota.
No sense of urgency, when you're driving down the highway and
Exactly.
there's a herd of buffaloes. I mean, it's least bothered how much ever you want. I think that's precisely what Swami is telling, because as we said in last episode, Swami is portraying that sense of urgency in his voice when he's saying that everything is going ruin and you're ruining the whole society. You're being, you're wasting this opportunity being human. It's really that Dunnapota is what
Dunnapota actually means, you are thick-skinned. So whatever I tell, it doesn't get into you. You don't feel anything about it. That's
But sir, there's this point which Swami is saying very strongly, that education and job must be disjoined. Mm-hmm. I think Swami beautifully did it in the university too.
Yes.
He was very particular about not having a placement cell, not having campus recruitment. Has Swami anything specifically he's told about any of these practices?
Yeah. See, the thing is, one thing which we look at from placement. Since I came from IIM and all, we saw
Right.
that that's the most important thing, even
have
evaluation.
Even
and all
in the
that.
penultimate semester, you have the placements.
Yeah. So what happens is, what we observed, and which even when I was studying, I objected to the authorities in the IIM was that, look, in the middle of the last term, you're having placement, and the moment placement comes, the students stop attending the classes.
Oh, okay.
So that means that whatever syllabus and which are identified to be taught in that particular period, does it mean that it is waste? If that is not needed, why did you put it in the first place then?
Exactly.
I'll give one more incident which actually happened. One of my colleagues' daughter, she was doing MBA in Chennai, where we didn't have for girls, so she was studying there. After first year, she wanted to go for the summer training. So they also arranged for companies. One of the company which came was Citibank. So they did an interview and then they asked a lot of questions. She gave beautiful answers and they were so impressed. They said, forget about your project. We'll give final placement itself. We'll give job now. Come and join us. We don't need your degree. We need you, your intelligence, your knowledge, your abilities. That's what we want. So what I'm saying is that what you're really looking for in a job? Because all education systems are only gravitating towards putting somebody in a company. If companies demanding these things, in fact, in one of the finance seminars where all the bankers came,
right,
all of them were talking great, we should. At the end, the chairman of the committee asked me, I was sitting in the last row, because I don't normally try to intervene. But he said, Sir, Sudhir Bhaskar, I want your comments. I told bankers, all of you are talking very nicely about values are needed. Can I ask one question? They said, yes. If values are so important, in your evaluation sheet at the time of interview, do you have a column or a parameter which checks what's the value system of the fellow who is coming in? They said, we don't have. Great. You may not be able to do then. He has been there with you and every year you do an evaluation, performance evaluation, and then you give him increments of promotion. Again in that, do you have a column which just talks about values? See, when in a practice itself, you're not going to give importance to values, you mean it is the employee who's working for you, will you do it? Will you give importance to it? So, some of them were really shocked when I raised this issue. I said, yes, we are culprits. Because all of them were managing directors and chairmen of public sector, private sector, all the multinational banks, all of them had come. Because inaugurated Swami and then Reserve Bank governor had come. Right. All that was done. So what I'm saying is, that's why we talk about Trikanda Suddhi. Is there consistency in your thought, word and deed? Some of them became very good friends of mine later and they started interacting with me on the phone or mail, saying that, can we incorporate this? How do you expect, what are the things we should do in training program to inculcate in them? That shows that they're interested.
In fact, Swami mentions Deva Priti, Papa Bhiti, Sanganiti. The beauty of having known Swami and the beauty of having lived with Bhagawan is we did everything as an offering to him. He insisted more on Deva Priti than Papa Bhiti. The moment you have love for God, you'll have fear of sin. And morality in society will be automatic. And now when you try to impose or you try to force in morality, so it's not coming from the source, as Swami would often say. Even if you're being nice to somebody to score a point, then that's really not a part of you. One fail-proof way which Swami has actually shown is Deva Priti, Papa Bhiti, Sanganiti in that order.
So that's what I was about to tell. Yeah. What has happened is, this is what Swami has given the sequence. Many of the interpreters afterwards, I've seen those who give talks in different locations, in what you call retreats and all, they started reversing, saying Papa Bhiti, Daiva Priti, Sanganiti. That means if you start with the fear, which, the way I look at it, most religion activities, if you look at
do's and don'ts,
they're all, putting fear first. Thereby, are you really being able to develop that love for God? If you have love for God, automatically you will not commit any sin, isn't it?
Exactly.
And once you don't commit any sin, obviously you're developing morality in you and in the rest of the society. Because everybody wants to look at somebody who is practicing.
Right.
And that's where, right at the beginning when Swami talks about, education is for life and not for living. The first example Swami expects is for the teacher. Are you? But this is again an example which I can quote from IIMs and other places which are elite institutions. Half the time all the faculty members are busy doing consultancy.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
See what happens, consultancy you earn, institute wants money because they can't pass on everything to the... But the thing, the faculty members who are doing consulting also can retain some part of it. That means apart from salary is getting that money.
So it's more favorable
I want to ask, I ask them, you tell that we should not look for money, but lead a good life and all. What are you doing first?
Exactly.
I'll become very bad if I go out now. But what I'm saying is, this is where the student observes. When the student is observing, he says that, if my teacher is the one who's after money, why should I not be after money?
Exactly.
That's why Swami has got the right to tell this because he led a life like that.
That's it.
I don't know if some of you know what it's an 8x8 room in which Swami used to stay.
Right.
And since Swami used to do walking there only because he said, if I come out and do walking, everybody will not sleep and they'll be running after me. So I don't want to spoil them. So he was just walking there only.
That was his exercise.
Yeah. See, Swami, everything practiced first.
Correct.
Like, he used to switch on the fan only after everybody sits.
Correct.
And before he leaves, he used to switch off and then come out so that see, that's what practice makes it the thing, for us to follow.
Every time. In fact, I remember some used to have this habit after eating, he'll take a sip of water from the tumbler and he'll gargle his mouth and drink.
Yeah. He didn't want to spit it.
Swami would do this many times. Probably even that we miss sometimes. I remember when we were once in Swami's presence, Swami said, see, this is what I do. Calling our attention, said, even that much water I don't want to waste.
Not water. Whatever food was left in your mouth,
right.
also he doesn't want it to go waste.
Right. Absolutely. When Swami says anything like this, it's very, very true. And talking about this last portion where Swami says that entire thing should lead you to help ever, hurt never. I think again, in many of Swami's discourses to the MBA people, Swami would say, the perspective of business itself, when you go out to the society and say that here is an opportunity for me to serve, instead of saying that here is an opportunity for me to milk the society. I think that is the approach you should have when you set up a business, when you grab an opportunity in society.
That's where the difference you'll find organizations which have been for more than 100 years and those who have wound up only after 15 years.
Right.
In 15 years, they have fantastic profits and all. They declare market caps goes up, share values have gone up very high and all that is great. But you'll say one fine morning that either the owner has committed suicide or the whole thing has been wound up. See, that's the difference, because what is that you're really looking for to communicate to the rest of the society through your activity, which is called business, which again is God-given. Society has given that particular one. In fact, Ajit Aksar, you would be knowing ITC chairman.
Mm-hmm.
He was one day when he was interacting with me, I was just asking them, ITC is known for bad things to start with. Cigarettes and all those things. Then I talked to him, then we asked him to tell me what is your concept of profit. Then he said, profit is the reward given by society for the good work you have done to the society.
Okay.
So just see, he said profit which the society gives to you by buying the product at higher price than what it is the reward for the good work you did for the society. I mean, it changes the entire perspective of what you consider as profit.
Correct.
If you now look at some of the companies, tell me what is the back they're doing to society? Except 2 years back they put in the Company Act itself saying that 2% of your profit should be spent on CSR. But all big companies, Tatas and all those people or Birlas and all, they have been doing it from day one.
Right.
And that's why we still have love for them and have regard for them. People would like to join those organizations.
Very true.
Even if they may not be paying great paymasters.
Right.
So that's the difference.
Absolutely. And I think that's what Swami did all through, especially when interacting with students, be it the students of science or, the other faculties. Humanizing education was something which Swami did endlessly. Probably, just to conclude, our political science lecturer would say that once Swami walked into his class, he was taking a class. Those days, the classes used to be in the Ishrama school. And Swami stood there for some time and listened to his lecture. And Swami said,
actually went and sat in the last bench.
Okay, sat on the last bench. Mm-hmm. And Swami asked, so what are you teaching the students? And he said, Swami, today the topic is liberty.
Okay.
Swami said, very good. Teach about liberty, but now and then teach about liberation also, Swami said.
Beautiful.
That's really the essence. And to be a student in Swami's class is what this program is giving us an opportunity. So dear listeners, with this we conclude this week's Shravanam Mananam Nidhidhyasanam. On behalf of all three of us, we offer this humble effort of ours at Swami's lotus feet. Thank you for being with us. Do join us again next week. Jai Sai Ram.